This is John Piercello, and you are listening to Fascination Street podcast.
I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street. Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This is another return appearance, arguably the very oldest return appearance I could probably ever get. Stephen Krueger was the guest on the second episode of my show. Episode 1 was my mother-in-law. She has vowed never to come back on the show because she said it was perfect the first time. Why would I ruin it? So I think this is the earliest return guest we're ever going to get. Stephen Krueger, he is a screenwriter for television, film, commercials, and he is a podcaster in his own right. We didn't talk about it, but he was one of the co-hosts on another podcast on the Smodcast Podcast Network, and he was on that show for 5 years. Something like that. 5 years or more, something like that. He's no longer on that show, but he's still friends with everybody, and it was all good. In this episode, we talk about some of his previous writing gigs, a weird Emmy nomination. He tells a story about a director that he doesn't have a whole lot of love for, so that's kind of fun. He tells a story of nearly being involved in a crazy mass shooting a bunch of years ago. Tells us a little bit about his time on the TV show Punk'd. He was one of the writers on the first season. And then we talk about his scripted sci-fi podcast, Subterra. You've heard me talk about Subterra. That was season 1. Season 2 is about to come out. So make sure you subscribe to Subterra everywhere you get podcasts, including Spotify, iHeart, and Apple Podcasts. Get caught up on Subterra Season 1. Season 2 is imminent. You will enjoy it, I promise. Stay tuned immediately after the episode for a sneak peek of Subterra Season 2. And this is my second conversation with my good buddy, Stephen Krueger.
Yeah, talk to me, yeah.
Welcome back to Fascination Street Podcast. Steve Krueger, how you doing today, man?
Oh my God, how are you?
I'm so excited.
It's been so long.
Ladies and gentlemen, streetwalkers, if you will, this is that Steve Krueger, the legendary Stephen Krueger, whose biggest claim to fame is that he was the very second episode of Fascination Street Podcast.
Wait, who was the first?
My mother-in-law.
Oh, next time. I'll get it.
Yeah, next you'll get it. You'll be the first one on the next podcast I start.
Yeah. Are you starting another one?
No.
Oh, good.
This one is hard enough.
A lot has happened since that second episode, correct?
Correct. Yeah, like 320-something, 330 episodes or some shit like that since then, and over 5 years. Yeah, it's been a while, man.
Wow, that's amazing.
That was so long ago. You were living in Austin, Texas at the time.
That's right.
I know.
Oh, right. You came to my house.
I did.
Now I remember. I wasn't so sure about you then.
Even though we had already met and ate hot dogs?
We had met and we had eaten hot dogs, but you hadn't been in my home, and I thought that was an invasion of privacy.
I still think it was.
It was definitely an invasion of my privacy, but podcasting was new back then. 4 years ago, five years ago. Now hey, come over to my house. What are you doing? Well, we're making a podcast. Who are you? I don't know. Just swing on by. Come on, let's make a podcast.
It doesn't matter. Just stop in. All are welcome. As a mutual friend of ours says, the door is always open.
Wait, who says that?
Martin Yu.
Oh, Marty Yu. Well, I have to say, I know you want to talk to me about stuff that's been going on, but I'm very impressed with where you have started with your podcast and where you have taken it. You're kind of the American dream. You know, you just scrappy, do it yourself, DIY success story. So congratulations to you and all the people that listen. Like, you impress me, which is very hard to do. I am not impressed with much.
Go on.
No, that's it. That's all you're going to get.
Damn it. Well, thank you very much, buddy. I appreciate that.
You have the distinction of being the first podcast my mom has ever listened to. She listened to your interview with my wife, Tamara Pennington, who is an event producer, and she is obsessed with my wife because why not? So she looked her up on the internet and found you interviewed her, and you are her first podcast. So beat that.
Wow, that's weird. I appreciate it. That's super cool. But that's a weird feeling, man.
That my mom has listened. She's like, what are these podcasts? And I'm like, I don't know. They're these things that people make. You wouldn't like it. And then she found yours, and you're the progenitor. You're the midwifing her into the world of podcasting. So congratulations.
Welcome to Fascination Street midwifery. So does that mean that she just got on the interwebs and searched your wife's name?
Yeah, your SEO is pretty tight, bro. I like that.
Holler.
Yeah,
Thanks.
good job.
Why is she stalking your wife? I mean, I know why I stalk your wife, but why is she stalking
my
your
wife? She's a nice.
My wife.
No, please. Can we let that one go? Or you know what I want to bring back? The other day I did what's up? Like, that's so old and out of touch. It almost might be time for it to bring it back.
If this was a phone call, I would have hung up on you just now.
Do it. What's up? Let's bring it back.
Oh, we can bring back those frogs. Bud.
Why?
Bud.
Why?
Bud.
You're supposed to say Zer.
I know, but there's a cadence to it. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Bud. Bud. Wise. Bud. Bud. Wise. Bud. Bud. Wise. Bud. Wise. Bud. Bud. Wise. Bud. Wise. Bud. Wise. Bud. Wise.
You're the worst.
What's cadence mean? Hold on, I'll take notes here. Look up cadence.
Oh, I love it. You're the second person to say, what does something mean? And then look it up on air.
Hold on. www.merriam. Is there two R's in Merriam?
Spell check.
Webster.
Spell correct.
Spell
correct. Just go to Webster's.
Hold on. I need to Google how to spell Merriam-Webster so I can enter it into my window to look up. What was the word you said? Cadence?
I fucking forgot by now, yeah.
Not familiar with that word. It's a pretty word.
You're a pretty bird. Steven Krueger. One of my top 15 favorite Stevens.
Name two others.
My father, my brother, my son.
Name three others.
All right, so Steven Krueger.
Yes, sir.
We talked about all kinds of stuff the last time. Everybody, go catch the first one. That's where we really dove into how Steve got to where he is. This time, it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to cover some things that I maybe didn't know about you the first time we did this, and some things that are happening very soon that I want to really dive into. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Why do you hate Tony Scott?
I don't hate the man. I mean, the man is no longer with us.
Now, is Tony Scott the one who did Top Gun?
Yes, he directed
Okay.
Top Gun. He directed The Hunger. He directed a movie called Domino or Domino. I don't know how to pronounce it. And he is the older brother of Ridley Scott, I think. Or
I think he's the younger, but I mean, who am I?
maybe the younger. Ridley Scott directed
Other things?
famous movies
All right.
like Gladiator.
Sure.
He directed Gladiator.
Okay.
But Tony Scott is most famous for Top Gun, which is the prequel to Maverick.
The 30-year prequel, 35-year prequel or some shit.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm working at an office in Los Angeles, and it's like a giant dormitory of TV shows and movies, and some of the most famous people on Earth were there at various times. Like, I think they had like a lot of post-production for giant movies. Like, I would see Mark Wahlberg's car, and I would see Ben Affleck's Bentley with his Red Sox thing around the license plate. At a certain point, they like assigned me a space, and I'm like, oh my God, I've made it. Like, it has my name on it. Printed on a computer. They didn't get the fancy one that they laminated because I wasn't going to be there that long. But still, you go to work and you see your name. It's like, that's a threshold in life to cross. And also at the same time, I had just bought my first new car. And it was like, you know, not a fancy car, but it was like a German made, you know, not a BMW, but not a Volkswagen, somewhere in that little realm. And it was like my first brand new luxury-ish car. I drove it off the lot and I drove to work, and my parking space was next to Tony Scott, the director, the either older or younger brother of Ridley Scott, who directed Gladiator. And he owned a Hummer, and not one of those early 2000s big yellow ugly ones. Like, he owned like a military Hummer.
A Humvee.
A Humvee, I guess, is the right word. Yeah. It had a periscope in the middle in case he wanted to see up in traffic, like what's going on up ahead. I think he had things to put over the windows to make it bulletproof. It was gigantic, like to climb into it. It was super high doors. His space was next to mine. First day I own this car, I pull into work and park next to this Humvee and go into work and go about my day as we all go about our days at work. And then I leave, and on the driver's side door, where I had been parked next to this Humvee, was a giant dent. I had it for the rest of the life of the car. It was going to be like thousands of dollars to fix. Like someone opened their door into my door and just, I guess, left. And I looked to where the Humvee was. It was not there. And so I put two and two together and I said, Tony Scott just dinged my car. Like, why? And then the next day, I received a note on my car from the management of the building saying, we're moving your space and please do not park next to Mr. Scott anymore. So not only did he ding my car that first day I owned it, but then he went to management of this place and said, can you ask this guy to move? He's in my door path. I don't want him near. He parks too close to me or something. I don't know what I did, but ever since then, I've kind of had a beef with Tony Scott. Never spoke to the man. I saw him every now and then. Speaking of cigars, they allowed him to smoke inside the building. If you've ever smelled cigar smoke inside and you're not at home or in Arnold Schwarzenegger's house, it's just an odd smell. Like you're just walking to the bathroom in your office and is something on fire inside? Like, yeah, a little tiny stick inside of Tony Scott's mouth. You can't smoke cigarettes inside, but cigars? So, he's a big Hollywood to-do. So he gets to park next to me, ding my car, never paid for anything. I didn't have like eyes on him doing it, but I knew it was him because he asked that I be moved from the parking space. So I wish the best for him. I believe he's dead now. But at the time, I was kind of upset. That was a real Hollywood move. At my local Costco, if I did that to someone, I would leave them a note. I'm sorry I dinged your car.
But you're not from Los Angeles, right?
What do you mean?
You didn't grow up there, so you definitely would leave a note.
Yeah.
LA people are just like, nah, I got to get the fuck out of here before I get caught.
Just leave a note. I don't know. So I had a beef with Tony Scott, but,
Well, he's dead. You win.
He's dead. I won. I'm still alive. I'm here. I'm sorry to any of Tony Scott's family if they're listening. He was probably going through a thing. He ended his own life, so I feel bad the way things turned out. But in that short year I worked there, I was really mad at him. And for the entire life of the car, which I sold when I moved to Texas and we met, I remember them looking at that dent and I was like, they have no idea what celebrity just did that.
Why didn't you write on it? Put a sticker that says Tony Scott did this.
Tony Scott. I don't want to give him power. That's my Tony Scott story.
Who's Johnny Redondo?
Who is Johnny Redondo?
I don't know. I asked you.
When you don't know the answer to a question, the way to stall is to ask it back or just repeat it, which is what I just did.
Is it?
I don't know. Is it? Let's keep doing this. This is a good game. Several years ago, a friend of mine who is a television showrunner, writer, called me up and said, you're not going to believe this, but I'm on this show that's being paid for by the post office for CBS. So I hung up. And he called back and he said, no, I'm serious. And I said, Rick, you got a lot of problems. You drink too much. You're probably sniffing stuff. You got to get to rehab. And he said, no, I'm on all those things, but I'm not lying. Like, this is a real thing. And I said, go on. And this producer found money from the post office to make a show about postal police for CBS for daytime Saturday morning.
Was this called The Inspectors?
Yes. So I said, okay, that sounds ridiculous. I want in. And so I worked on it for a while. And when it came to like writing a script, I was like, I don't know if I want my name on this. And they said, well, okay. I believe it was non-WGA. When you're in the WGA, you're not supposed to work on non-WGA stuff. So you're not really supposed to use your name. But the little polite thing people do is just use like a fake name. And so they said, what do you want your name to be? And I just came up with the most porn sounding 70s name, which was Johnny Redondo. And they put it on it. And I never thought about it. I never saw the show. I just, oh yeah, okay. That was those 18 weeks of work. And then I get a call from the same guy, and he said, "We've been nominated for an Emmy for writing." We did not win. The two leads in the show won for acting. Like, I could not believe that this ridiculous show was winning awards. So my sole Emmy nomination for writing is through a fake pen name, Johnny Redondo.
Did they send you a certificate or anything like that? Like, do you get some piece of something that says you were nominated, or was it just a fucking phone call?
Because it was a daytime Emmy, because the show was on during the day, it was like a writing team. So I think people who were credited on that season got some, I think it was just an email. It was like, "You've been nominated." Like, ugh. Do I have to go there as Johnny Redondo?
That would have been amazing.
A leisure suit and some medallions and go, "Hey, how you doing? I write good." But it didn't win. I totally forgot about the show, the Emmy nomination for a fake person. And then a couple of years ago, Last Week Tonight with John Oliver did a whole segment on the show making fun of the inspectors, making fun of everything. They had big name celebrities doing scenes that we had written. Like, it was the most embarrassing, but also at the same time, like, oh my God, we're being made fun of. That's so awesome.
So they did scenes that you wrote?
They did scenes that they like improvised off of what we had done with like big actors.
Did you say it was John Oliver's Last Week Tonight?
Yes.
Was that episode called A Few Years Ago Tonight?
Well, it was Last Week Tonight when it aired. It's not. You've tripped me up with the math. Wait.
When he made fun of the show wasn't on, was it?
I think it
The
was.
Inspectors?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, it was still going?
It went for like 5 seasons. I was just too embarrassed. But yeah, it went for years and years.
How long did you work on it?
Just 1 season.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
Exorcism.
There's stages of demonic attack. She was perhaps the most severe. It was nightmarish.
Graphology.
I can look at somebody's handwriting and I can analyze their character.
Private wrestling.
He wanted me to run over his penis with my car.
Every week on Profoundly Pointless, we explore something new. Listen to Profoundly Pointless wherever you listen to podcasts.
Let's get back into it.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, Streetwalkers, if you will, Steven Krueger is a screenwriter for who knows, because he never fucking talks about any of it.
I just told you a whole story.
Yeah. And how long have I known you? 5+ years. And this is the most I've heard about any of your writing ventures. Tell me about Laguna Beach, The Hills.
So I was working on a show. It was an ABC mid-season replacement, and it was going down the tubes. Like it was going to get canceled. That was back in the day when they would air like one episode and then cancel it. And I could tell it was going to be one of those. Netflix doesn't cancel anything. They just drop them out all out there. But like linear television, sometimes one and done. And this thing was going down the tubes. And so I was looking to get off it. I was looking for like anything, like help me, help me, help me. And a friend of mine called and said, "I'm doing a show about real people, but we need writers to come up with the stories." Hang up, and then he calls back and he says, "No, I'm serious." And I said, "Okay, what is this?" And he's like, "Well, it's about these kids in Orange County, but because of reasons having to do with labor laws, and we can't shoot with them all the time, so we need to like craft a show, and then they'll kind of go be in it." And I'm like, "So are they actors?" And he said, "No, not really." And I said, "So they're real people?" "Yeah." "And you're not making a documentary about them?" "No." And I went, "How much does it pay?" And he said, WGA minimum, whatever that was. And I'm like, "How many weeks?" And he said, 25 weeks. And I said, "I will be there Monday. We're making a show that isn't real, that we're writing, but is not written," or something. Like it was just, I was like, I'm going to just sit there and do nothing and have the best time and just goof off for full pay. It was like one of those. So I left this other show, and that thing became Laguna Beach, which I did not think was going to be a hit show. And it went for 4 seasons and then gave the world The Hills. And then there's like 5 other spinoffs.
How long did you work on the show?
4 years.
All 4 years of Laguna Beach?
Yes. and like a little bit on the hills, but not much because I had had enough. But it was written, but not written, and then re-edited, and then massaged into making it look like a nighttime soap opera starring these high school kids. And it's like the biggest hit I've ever been a part of, which I did not think was going to work, but that's how it works.
Never seen it, no offense.
Are you a woman around the age of 30 who would have been 16 at the time, whenever it aired?
Who knows how I identified back then? Maybe.
Oh, geez. Here we go. It's definitely for like a certain type of people.
The same type that watched Jersey Shore or a different type?
See, I never watched that, so I don't know. Like, that's the first unscripted but scripted show I ever worked on.
But not the last, right?
No. Once you have like a hit show in that world, you get a lot of offers. So that was like another 10 years of, hey, come do this thing. Make it like Laguna Beach. And I'm like, that was a mistake. That was a lightning in a bottle. I don't know how much? Oh, yeah, I'll be there Monday. There's a lot of forgettable shows in the list.
Sure. Transitioning 180 degrees away from that, maybe even 360, tell me the story of how a dead trans hooker and a $20 million lawsuit turned into the first season of Punk'd.
Oh, yeah, right. I wasn't around for the pilot of that, but I know the lore, which is Ashton Kutcher likes to play little funny pranks. Cool. That's a show or something. So they decided to do some funny little pranks. I don't know if it ever made air or whatever, the show, but there was one where Dax Shepard went in the bathroom and he would like brush people with one of those lint brushes, you know, when you have a sweater with cat hairs, like while they're urinating. Like kind of silly, like, oh, that's the stuff you see on TikTok now. And you're like, stop it. Okay. Oh, we're doing a bit? Like, okay, fun. You know, I think this network or whomever wanted like a big set piece with something exciting. So the brains over there decided to go to Las Vegas and make it look like there had been a murder scene. The sex worker was a dummy that had been chopped up and there was blood everywhere.
Hilarious.
I know. It's where do these Hollywood people come up with this stuff? So what they call marks, the people who don't know that they're being filmed, go into their hotel room in Las Vegas and see this, what looks like a human body chopped up. What would you do?
I would sue for $120 million.
Well, in the moment, what would you do? Who are you going to sue?
I'd probably piss myself and scream like a woman.
And then what?
Run out.
Exactly. If you saw a dead body in your hotel room, I'd leave the hotel room. I'd say, let's call the front desk and, hi, can you send housekeeping? There's a dead person. Or whomever you call. And so the geniuses in the show decided to send like a fake security guard in there who's like, no one's leaving. And they're like, no, we want to leave. And they said, no, we need to film a scene here where we blame you for this and you feel uncomfortable. And the two people they picked to be in this were attorneys. You learn the law really quickly when you mess with attorneys. And so when you are in a place, in a physical building, and someone says you can't leave, and if they're not a police officer or a member of the military, that's imprisonment. You can't imprison someone. They have agency to come and go.
Yeah, isn't that what OJ went to prison for?
Exactly. In Las Vegas, yeah. He must be a fan of the show. So they took these two lawyers and they had an improv actor dressed up like security going, no one's leaving until I find out what's going on. Who's this person who's dead? And they're like, let us out, let us out, let us out, let us out, let us out. And they didn't let him out. And so because they're attorneys, they sued for however many millions of dollars.
120.
$120 million. I believe they settled out of court for much less than that. But when I started on that show, it was called Harassment. And one of the early sort of tasks to the creative geniuses who come up with that stuff was, we need to change the name of the show because that's a legal term, harassment. And we just got sued for $120 million. Maybe we should pivot to a different name. And so there are lots of people who worked on that claim that they came up with the word punked, myself being one of them, but I don't really remember. Like, maybe it was said, and then someone said, or someone said punk, and someone said, make it punk. I don't remember because it was a long time ago, but I was there when that word was born. And then that show went from harassment to punked and now is still a thing, which is crazy.
So you were there for season 1?
Yes.
Only season 1?
Yes.
You do a lot of season 1 and move on, don't you?
I am very difficult to work with.
Ladies and gentlemen, he is not even smiling when he says that.
No, I am profoundly difficult to work with.
What was your favorite episode that you worked on?
I did the thing with Justin Timberlake and the IRS seizing all his stuff.
That is my absolute favorite of any reality show ever. Watching that kid cry, he was just a kid back then.
Yeah.
But watching him cry because everything he had worked his whole life to get was taken away. And then when somebody accidentally stepped on the guitar.
Yeah. It wasn't really his guitar, but it looked like his famous childhood guitar.
Best thing ever.
Yeah. My dad is a tax preparer and always talked about taxes and IRS, and that was always in my mind. And the show was originally about harassing lawyers, apparently. Like that was the pilot. And then at a certain point, when they moved away from harassing people who are litigious into what was then called punked, they said, let's maybe just do celebrities. Because people like celebrities. And so the first celebrity they offered up was Justin Timberlake. And I was like, what if there's like a tax thing that at his house? And the next thing I know, I'm standing there as Dax Shepard is stepping on his guitar. Like, wow, you dream it up one day and then it happens. Like,
so is it fair to say that that was your idea? I know a lot of people wrote it or worked on it, but was that your idea?
yes.
Fuck yeah. I love you for that. That is amazing.
Like insider baseball, so Justin Timberlake has to sign off to be in it. You know, like they've shot with celebrities who are like, nope, you can't, I was an asshole. You can't do it.
They have to sign after it's all done. Otherwise it'd be a
Yes.
spoil, right? So they have to sign a release.
Yes. Also because he has a relationship with a music network that's showing the show. Like they don't want to, whatever. So he's like, all right, I want to come in and see it. And there was a cut of that little segment where he's just bawling. Like it got uncomfortable. And he's like, I just remember him going, you got to get rid of half of that. Like, I can't, like, I look pathetic. And I was like, wow, what? Well, okay. Yeah. We'll take out most of the crying. So it got really upsetting, but he's a super nice guy. And that's another, like, I can't believe that show is still around in some form. I seem to only work one season, but the shows go on forever.
Hey, once they get rid of the dead weight, they can set sail.
There you go. Pretty smart. Hire me for a season. It'll be a hit, and then kick me to the curb, and you'll go for 10 years.
Fantastic. You're giving me really great stuff here. So this is really going to cut down on, I'm not going to get to ask all my stuff.
Sorry.
Don't apologize. It's great. Tell me about your experience nearly being involved in the Santa Monica College mass shooting of 2013.
Okay. Well, it's interesting how at the time...
Nope.
It's fascinating.
All right.
What fascinates me is it was a mass shooting at the time, and I think 6 people were killed, which by today's standards seems like, oh, well, is that a mass shooting? But I don't know what it was, but I was working in an office in Santa Monica and I heard machine gun fire. And I know the sound because I like to sometimes shoot guns, and I've gone to some places where they shoot machine guns, and I'm like, that's a machine gun.
So were you inside your building when you heard this, or?
Yes, I was inside my building and I heard the report of a machine gun. If you live in Los Angeles, you will often hear fireworks. I don't know if that goes on where you live, but people just light off fireworks all the time. And my wife is always like, was that a gun? And I'm like, no. Like, I know the sound of a gunshot. I definitely know the sound of a machine gun. And I'm like, that is not fireworks. And I watched like 20 people in this office all get up to go investigate. They're like, huh, what's going on? Fireworks? And I remember screaming at everyone, like, do not move. Do not leave the building. And apparently, like, this guy had gone nuts. He had killed his parents, set the house on fire, and ran down the street, and he was carjacking. First, he shot up a bus, and then he ran through our, we were sort of like at a corner, and they were like little dotted buildings on a plot of land. He ran through our courtyard, shot at another car, and carjacked it. So that was the sound I had heard. Then he drove to the Santa Monica Community College, and I think he killed 4 more people, and then was either took his own life or was killed by police. But after a mass shooting, it's like tense wherever you are. No one knew what was going on. And I remember, like, I need to use the restroom. It was outside, and I walked to the door, and I was just face to face with a gun with a California Highway Patrol guy screaming at me, going, "Get back inside, get down." Like, they didn't know if it was multiple people, what was going on. It's horrific, the wake of something crazy like that. They don't let you leave the building. There's helicopters for hours. Like, it's just nuts. And luckily, no one at my office was hurt, but it was like a pretty unpleasant day. Thanks for making me remember that.
That's what I do. But dude, don't leave out the ending.
What was the ending?
Were you able to go to the restroom?
In a way, I did go to the restroom.
All right, Susie from accounting, don't open that top drawer.
Oof.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
It is 2140. You are trapped in an underground bunker. Built a century ago to protect mankind from the pandemic on the surface. Now ruled by tyrants and their robot army. You are an outcast, an orphan, a scavenger, blind, afraid, and alone. You are Ace, a survivor, and you will try to escape this place. This place known as Subterra. Subscribe to Subterra at iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you download podcasts.
Let's get back into it.
This is going to sound like a weird question, but I mean this with the utmost sincerity. When and how did you learn the value of what you do, the value of yourself in your chosen field?
How did I learn the value? See, what you do is you repeat the question back if you don't know the answer.
Do you?
This is going to sound like I've set up a plug to promote something that I've done that I want to talk about, but it really is this little silly scripted sci-fi podcast that I put together during quarantine, where I had to just grab all of the various skills that I've acquired, not just like, I can write, like, oh, I know how to direct and edit and score, and also be like a layer removed from that and listen to something I've done and give myself notes, critique, say, you could do a little better there. Long story, even longer. Like, I went out and made a scripted sci-fi podcast with a writer friend and a single piece of talent, an actor, all on my own, which I've never done. I have no experience. I don't know how to edit.
Hold on. What does a single piece of talent an actor mean? You mean like there was just one voice actor in this?
One voice actor.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead. So it was you, your writer friend, and a single voice actor.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess I'm often hired to like do a particular part of a larger puzzle. Can you come in and write, or can you come in and produce, or can you oversee and edit? I'm not really like a showrunner where I oversee everything. And even then, when you're a showrunner, you're still beholden to a network or a platform. But like this thing that we made, I had to like rely on myself for everything. And it taught me like, oh, I can do that. It's a little harder than I thought, and maybe I need to do a little more research on the internet, but I can figure these things out. I have pretty good instincts. I've been around for a while, and oftentimes, like especially in commercial work, I'm just kind of phoning it in, you know? I'm just sort of like, this is funny, and they're like, that's hilarious. Like, is it? Nah, not really, but it's funny enough for Skittles. Okay, you guys go have fun with it. But when I have myself to answer to, when I'm the client, when I'm the network, when I'm like, go make this sci-fi show to myself, and myself goes and makes it, and I listen to it, and I'm like, you could do better with the music here, or I think there's a better edit of that scene. It has just been the most rewarding creative experience in my career, but also I think I learned, to answer your question, in a rambling, unrehearsed screed, I learned that I have a lot of skills that I didn't know I had, or have muscles that I didn't know I could flex.
Do you think that you learn these things just from being on so many sets and being around so many productions? You just kind of absorbed it without even knowing you were absorbing it? Kind of like how you don't have any kids, I don't think, but like little kids, you don't know they're listening until they drop their first F-bomb and you're like, oh shit, they were listening. So is it kind of like that where you just kind of absorbed all this stuff from the experiences that you had?
I think it's part of that. I think it's osmosis. It's just being around really smart, talented people, and then also being around not very smart, not very talented people and going, that guy stinks, but she's awesome. So I think that's half of it. But it's also this world we live in where I was just listening to lots of podcasts with actors talking about craft and like, oh, what's a great note you got from a director? And I'm just like, I lean in with my ears and I'm like, yeah, give me that. And then it's just like, it sticks. And then I bust that thing out somewhere and they're like, that's a great, where'd you get that? And you don't admit like, oh, it's just listening to a podcast with some actor, but it's part experience and part the media saturated world we live in. You can just absorb it through your ear holes or watching videos or just taking it all in.
Great explanation. Thank you for that. And that was a wonderful segue to let's talk about The Thing. Let's see here. It was almost exactly 2 years ago, like 2 years plus a month or so ago, that you released this scripted sci-fi podcast called Subterra. That was season 1, which was 8 episodes. I listened to it. My wife and I listened to it multiple times. We thought it was awesome. It's really awesome to listen to if you're on a drive because, you can just go from one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And so that's what we did. We listened to it on a trip. What gave you the inspiration? I know that you said that due to COVID quarantine, you had to kind of keep yourself occupied and do some other things and gave you the opportunity to work on some skills. Why did you decide to do a scripted podcast? And then why did you decide that it should be sci-fi?
It originated as an idea I had with this creative partner, the screenwriter I know, and it was going to be a TV pitch and it was going to be a much bigger show. It's set in a bunker underneath the earth. The air has gone sour. This is how people live now. And we had multiple stories across multiple sort of planes within this bunker. We were like having art done and getting our pitch together. And then the pandemic happened. And I said, no one's going to buy a show now. Like no one knows what's going to happen. But it was partially just to keep from going insane. So I love scripted podcasts. I don't know how to make them, but let's learn and figure it out. And so we did. We sat down and took one of the characters, which is, if you listen to it, it's a boy named Ace, and he's trying to make it to the surface. He's an orphan, and he's blind without these sort of optical goggle thingies, and he's built a robot dog. It's set in the future, and he's trying to make it to the surface. Within that simple story, we just like crafted this 8-episode arc, and friend of the show, Marty Yu, is an actor I know, and he was sitting at home as well. And so I thought, oh, well, you don't have to leave. You can record it at your home, and I'll learn how to edit it, and I'll learn how to score it. And I think it turned out pretty cool. Like you said, lots of people enjoy listening to it on drives. People keep telling me, like, I listen to it with my family. And I'm like, I'm not a family-friendly guy. But it sort of ended up there. And because we couldn't have actors all in one room doing scenes, we wrote it in prose form. So there's a narrator who also does the voice of the character, but it's mostly narration. I think it really helps in sci-fi to have someone describe the world, to describe the space you're in, the sounds, the smell, and that married to some easy to find on the internet sound effects, we kind of built like a sonic place, a sonic experience. So it sounds different, it sounds unique, and like I'm not a sci-fi guy, but I just sort of looked up what are the tenets of sci-fi.
Really?
I kind of did. I'm like, I've read some sci-fi, but it's not like my background. But again, the pandemic, you had a lot of free time. Like, okay, I'm going to read some sci-fi and read about what people have written about sci-fi and just kind of fake it till you make it. And so that's how it was born.
So when you and your writing partner, friend, decided to write this, what was the ultimate goal for this project?
people keep asking me, like, do you want to make money off of it? And, you know, what do you want to sell it as a TV show? My ultimate goal is to just find an audience. It seems like everything else I do is so motivated by, well, I want to sell this as a TV show so I can make it into a t-shirt, so I can make the t-shirt into an NFT, so I can something, buy a boat. You know, show business is so transactional, which is fine, but a part of me, I feel like I'm in film school all over again, and like, no, I just want to make this thing, and I want to make it right, and I want to make it good. Where I've come from my film school stuff, which is I want to make myself happy, I want to make other people happy, i.e., I want to find an audience. And so I'm not interested in making any money. Talk to some people who were like, well, we can make this into a TV show and you should pitch it. And I'm like, no, I'm not interested in pitching it or having Skittles pay for it to become a movie. I don't know why I'm picking on Skittles. They make a delicious, wonderful product.
I think you're picking on them because they made that horrific commercial where that kid breaks out in Skittles pox and then
I didn't like that.
And then he's eating them off of some other kid's face.
Yeah, that's probably it. But I guess when you get to a certain point and you're just like making money off of your creative labors, you lose yourself and you're like, what am I even doing? Like, I don't make stuff for people. I make stuff for money. I make stuff for people to pay me that isn't exactly what I want to do or isn't quite right.
You sound like a musician.
I guess I kind of have the soul of a musician because I want to just like, well, this doesn't cost us much to make it, so let's just make it for making it. And if people love it and want more, we'll make more. But I'm trying not to like have a presentation deck strategy with like arrows on it that are like make podcast, then sell podcast to Netflix, then make NFTs, then boat. I want a boat, as you can tell.
Yeah, let's get Skittles to buy you a boat.
Skittles, if you're listening, buy me a boat. We're just trying to be entertaining, be engaging, and find an audience and figure out the economics of it later.
So your goal was to find an audience with season 1. Did you?
No, not really. I mean, I guess I'm getting a big lesson in digital marketing, and you can have a great thing, but you're competing with 800,000 other great things. And so a part of my energy in the second season of Subterra is figuring out ways to boost it and break through the noise of 8 billion podcasts, 8 trillion TV shows. I mean, it found people. It wasn't like no one listened to it. But look, I think it's good. It's got my seal of approval.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's not bad. But I'm trying to figure out how to find that audience and then let them organically tell other people, hey, this is this cool thing. You should check it out.
This may come as no surprise to you because of the business that you're in and have been for quite some time. I was floored when I found out that the way people pitch TV shows, they're now pitching podcasts to podcast networks.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any thoughts of pitching this show to a podcast network?
No, not yet. I want to fail or succeed on my own 2 feet, and I don't want input. Like I said, I have learned that I'm like, I think my instincts they're actually pretty good. They're not horrible. And so I want to apply that to this creative endeavor and not have other people meddle with it. That's what you get. You pitch it to Spotify and they're like, great. So we see Billy Ray Cyrus as the robot dog. And you're like, really? Huh. I didn't quite see that, but okay, whatever keeps the lights on. So no, I'm really more of like, I want to do the DIY route. I mean, okay, let me ask you, would you pitch this podcast to a bigger network?
My podcast?
Yeah.
Yes, I would.
Because you want a boat.
No.
You probably have a boat.
No, I have a friend who has a boat, and that's way better.
That is true.
No, because of the reach. I want more people to hear my show, and most networks have more eyeballs or more earballs than I personally get on my own. I mean, it's fun to grow it, like you say, pass or fail with my own 2 hands. But I feel like if I want more people to hear my show, then a network could help me do that. I don't know what else they could help me do, but I have a hunch that they could help me get more earballs, get a bigger reach.
Right. But well, let's say early on, like you've just done 5 or 10 of them and you had a meeting with a Spotify and they're like, you hadn't developed your show yet. You hadn't built your audience. That's different than now. Like now they would say, Well, you do this thing, and you do it quite well. It pains me to say that. I don't know why. I don't know why I like to pick on you. You're a very nice guy. But you do this thing very well, and you've built the audience. So, yes, like a Spotify would boost your signal, and you would get more ears. But at the same time, could you deal with the meddling of outsiders?
Absolutely not. No fucking way. You're right. You're 100% right on that.
We like what you do, Steve, and we like everything. We love your interviews. We're just not crazy about the word fascination or street. And we were thinking about the word thunder. It's a very exciting, dynamic word. And lane.
Those two words have tested well.
They've tested well. No one has claimed them. So Thunder Lane with little Stevie Owens.
Wednesdays, I'm going to need you to keep it clean. Going to be no bad words on the Wednesday shows. And if you could, when you talk about cars, whenever you want, only talk about GM products.
I mean, that's like the trade-off. Are you happy doing what you do now?
I am. I wish I was more successful at it, but I am. Let me ask you this. You worked with Dax Shepard on arguably his very first TV role ever. And very recently on his podcast, he got like a $60 million Spotify deal. Do you think he's happier now than he was when he worked with you?
Oh, yeah. Way happier.
Because he has a boat?
He has a boat. He has like 3 boats.
Oh, okay, cool. Maybe he can jump one boat over the other 2 boats.
I mean, I think you just came across like the struggle that creatives like yourself go through, which is you're good at what you do and you want more people to appreciate you because that is how you make money. But also, I think it's why you do it, right? You don't want to just, if you want to make money, just flip houses or run for Senate. I don't know. They pay very well. But you do this, like you do something that most people on Earth don't do. There's not that many people interviewing people.
Well, there's a lot, but not most of them yet. Like you're saying, we're getting there.
It's like 6.5 billion people. I think only about 1.5 billion are currently doing podcasts.
Right. Okay. So good.
But like you have built a rhythm, you've built a style. I might say even a cadence of how you do things. And do you want some outsider to go, we're going to make a couple of changes. And of course, we all want Dax Shepard's deal or Joe Rogan's deal. Joe Rogan does whatever Joe Rogan does, talks to whomever, smokes ayahuasca on the air, and Spotify said, great, here's a ton of money, just keep doing it. Maybe a little less about the anti-vax stuff, but other than that, go nuts. And that's like 0.5% of the podcasters get that deal. Like your deal would probably come with some strings.
Yeah.
Like is it $60 million? You're like, I'll be whatever you want, baby. Or like, is there a threshold?
I don't know. $60 million is a lot of money for a kid who grew up in a trailer.
All right. That's a lot of money. Yeah. That is a lot. All right, okay. That's ridiculous. All right. So whatever you make doing this, if they doubled it, like, okay, cool. And the audience reach was thrice-fold, tenfold, but you had to have a producer kind of guide your questions, guide your guests, maybe let's not go there. I mean, would that make you happy?
Not double, not triple, not quadruple, maybe not even 10x what I'm making right now from the podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a number. I have no idea what it is, but I'm sure that I'd wet myself if that number was thrown at me. And then I'd go, oh, I guess that's it. It's like porn, right? You'll know it when you see it.
Sure. I know it and see it. I don't know what that means. There's a wonderful book by a guy named Matt Mason called The Pirate's Dilemma. I recommend everyone reading it. And one of the things...
Matt's been on the show.
He has?
No, go ahead.
He's like a kind of futurist. The book is like pro-piracy. He was way ahead of like where all the world is going. He's like now in the Web 3.0 NFT space.
Oh, wow.
But I recall a part of his book saying like the media landscape is going to change and the future of the world is the artistic middle class. And I was always like, huh. And before this explosion that we live in now, people were either giant media stars or they were in their basement on ham radio. No one listened to them. And now the superstars have kind of quelled a little bit. There's not like an Oprah anymore or someone that like dominates linear television. And the people in their basement doing ham radio have now been elevated to you. And you're like, I remember the chapter of the book, like, be happy with it. You know, you're never going to achieve what Dax Shepard has or Joe Rogan.
It's weird that Matt would mention Dax Shepard in the book, but go ahead.
I know that's me. I'm extrapolating.
Oh,
But you are like a member of the artistic middle class. Like you are successful. You have made a show that has found an audience and is making money, but it's going to be harder and harder to break through that ceiling to become, oh, I'm crazy rich from my thing. That's a once or twice a generation kind of thing now, like a Dax Shepard or Joe Rogan. Those words excited me when I read them. I'm like, okay, cool. I can be middle class. Like I've been wealthy doing stuff and miserable. And I think Dax Shepard, even though he is being rewarded, is probably pretty happy doing his show because it's him. It's his thing. No one else owns it. And like you, no one else owns your creative instincts. It's all you.
well, as much as I love for you to keep telling me how awesome I am, thank you. I want to push past that. Why did you feel the need to write season 2 of Subterra?
Season 2 of Subterra was inspired by the pandemic ending. Wait, did it end?
No,
I
go
think
ahead.
it ended.
We got a new one. It's called Skittles Pox.
Skittles Pox or Monkeypox, brought to you by Skittles. The pandemic ended and I wanted to do scenes with actors. You could bring people into a studio now, and we just wanted to expand the world. And I learned some things about audio production and editing and mixing that I wanted to apply to a second season. And to be frank, the few people that found it and became fans of it wanted more. And I guess at the end of the day is like what you do and what I do is like try and make people happy, bring something to them. And when they go, oh, well, what happens next? And I go, okay, well, let's tell more stories. So we've even started to write a third season. You know, it's just, I guess I've just returned to the like, I want to tell stories and make people feel something. And it's so easy to do now, as opposed to getting Netflix to pay you millions of dollars to shoot a thing and maybe it doesn't work. I feel like a closer connection to the audience because it's so much easier to create for them. Whereas before, there's too many layers. So I was like, let's keep going. Let's keep making more of these.
So season 2, is it completed yet?
Yeah, it comes out shortly.
Oh, fantastic. Stay tuned for that, folks. Go ahead and subscribe to Subterra, and then whenever season 2 is available, it will come out on the same feed. Is that right?
Yes, same feed.
Okay, so everybody go check out Subterra. It's available everywhere you get podcasts, including the aforementioned Spotify, iHeart, and even the Apple podcasting app or whatever the hell they're called now.
It's got a great name. I think it's just called Podcasts.
It's called Apple Podcasts.
Oh, Apple Podcast. Oh, great. That's even better.
Stupid.
Where do they come up with that?
Yeah. Oh, well, Steve Jobs is dead, so, and Johnny Ive doesn't work there anymore.
Nope.
So everybody go check out season 1 of Subterra. Season 2 is on its heels. It's going to be coming out shortly. Did you stick with the same format? Not format, but I guess the same structure. Is it just you and one other writer?
Yeah, it's myself and one other writer.
The same writer as the first season?
Yes.
And is there just one voice actor this time?
No, there are several voice actors, including friend of the show, Kyle Bornheimer, who you would know from every single show ever made because he's in everything.
Including this one.
Even this one. He just shows up. I just hit record and then he's like, hi, I'm Kyle Bornheimer.
He's like John Pierocello. He's everywhere.
Yeah, well, those guys they're everywhere. It's amazing. A couple other actors are in it too, so it's like a much bigger landscape of storytelling, and it's super fun. And if you hate it, hey, I tried.
How about this? If you hate it, tell me why. What didn't you like about it? Tell me, not Steven Krueger. Tell me, Steve Owens. Tell me what you didn't like about it.
If you hated it, how much did you pay for it?
Oh, I see what you did there.
Ooh, it was free.
I see what you did there. Season 1 had 8 episodes. Do you know how many episodes are in season 2?
8 episodes.
Is there a reason you're going with 8?
No, not really.
That's what it takes to tell the story?
That is an oft-discussed question around making stuff, like how many episodes, and I feel like 10 is too many, 12 is like daunting, and 6 is like, is this a miniseries? So 8 is the new 12, as they say. Like 12 used to be the right amount, and now it's 8. How long do you want to listen to a show or watch a TV series? I think 8 is my magic number.
Got you. As we're heading out here, Stephen, I only have a couple more questions. Where can people go to see pictures of your dog pooping the alphabet?
At Steven Krueger on Instagram. I take pictures of food, and I take pictures of my rescue pit bull Nugget, who likes to poop numbers and letters.
So you take basically before and after pictures of food?
It's a rough watch because you're like, look at this delicious bowl of ramen. And then, oh my God, that dog pooped a number 4. Prepare yourself.
Fantastic. Where can people find you on social media?
I'm on Twitter at Steven Krueger. I'm on Discord at Ivan Charlie.
What the fuck is Discord?
If you don't know, if you have to ask, it's where all the cool kids are hanging out.
I thought that was Getter or something.
No.
I thought that was TikTok or Vero or what's the other one? Truth Social. I thought that's where all the cool kids were.
I'm on Truth Social as Patriot6969. What did I say? Twitter at Steven Krueger, Discord, Ivan Charlie, and the aforementioned Instagram for my dog's poopies and my food pics at Steven Krueger. That's PHENKRUEGER, just like Freddy.
You're not on TikTok?
At Steven Krueger on TikTok.
How about the Facebooks?
I do not have a Facebook account.
Rock on. Steven Krueger, is there anything we didn't talk about or I didn't ask you about that you specifically wanted to talk about today? I know we covered a lot, but was there anything I missed?
No, I think that's it.
Rock on. Well, my friend, my return guest from the very second episode ever. I can't thank you enough for doing that, by the way. That meant the world to me, and it still does. Thank you. Steven Krueger, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day and your hectic, I guess, taking pictures of dog shit, pooping, numbers, and letters schedule to hang out and let us get to know you a little bit better on Fascination Street, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate you, man.
You have a great rest of your week, dude.
Love you, Steve Owens.
I love you, Steven Krueger. Thank you so much. You go do your thing, and I will talk to you later.
Anytime.
Bye, buddy. Hey, Streetwalkers. This is a sneak peek for Subterra Season 2. The first 7 episodes are available now. Subterra, everywhere you find podcasts.
Praise Amun. Praise Amun.
Praise Amun.
Praise
Amun. Just then, the elevator stopped. The chanting also stopped. Ace and Mal separated, hands pulling apart, just as the door slid open. The first thing Ace saw was a symbol on the wall. He whispered to Mal, "What does it say?"
"We're here. The surface is just beyond that blast door."
Carter ran outside and stood in the large pressure chamber. He ran along the length of the thick blast door. Small portholes covered in filth and residue were lit up by a pale orange glow.
"Come out and join me! We are close, brothers and sisters. Just beyond this door is our salvation. We will breathe free air. We will be healed."
"That door hasn't been opened in over 20 years.
Shut your mouth.
Whatever you're looking for, you're not going to find it on the other side."
Carter stepped up to the main door console and put his fingers around a lever. He took a deep breath, then pulled down. More lights started flashing, blue this time, and a deafening, pulsing alarm drowned out Mal's screams. An unseen power source came to life with an electric hum. Gears turned. A lifter engaged the blast door with a solid metal thunk. The sound of air pierced the pressure chamber as the blast door ratcheted slowly upwards. Red sand snaked under the door as the gap increased. Carter spun around and bathed himself in the dry gusts of air, but he had still not stepped out of the cabin, though the door was high enough to let him pass. Ace used his other senses, as his eyes were only seeing fuzzy images. The wind carried a smell on it, a smell that made Ace recall the scent of the fire-blasted ash in Hell's Gate. Another loud metallic thud startled everyone, and there was silence. Just the wind knifing into the chamber. The blast door was fully retracted. The opening spanned over 20 meters in height. Carter stepped up to the threshold of the blast door. He looked out into the hazy orange mist. Raina moved to Carter's side, still holding Mal captive.
"Close the door! We're gonna die! Please, close the door!"
We will never die. We will be healed. When you see the sun, you'll love me. You'll see. We will all see.
Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2001 album Intransigence, used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is from the song Say My Name off the 2021 album Underdog Anthems, used with permission from Jack's Hollow. If you like the show, tell a friend. Subscribe and rate and review the show on iTunes and wherever else you download podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the episodes are available there as well. Check me out on Vero at Fascination Street Pod and TikTok at Fascination Street Pod. And again, thanks for listening.